Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and hard to believe, but this is the final segment in our pre-Jazz Under the Stars interviews, as Steve Grismore is with me now with our final Jazz Under the Stars coming up on Thursday, August 22nd with Trio Grismore. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've had a busy summer.
Oh, it's been real busy.
This Trio Grismore has been busy. You all played at the Iowa City Jazz Festival.
Yeah, we've had quite a few gigs from May through this gig coming up in August. You know,
Beaker Brothers have been busy.
Beaker Brothers, big fun. I should.
Big fun.
I
Big
should
fun
probably join another
too.
band. I don't have enough stuff to work on.
But good thing you retired.
Yeah, well, actually, you know what it is? It's been fun. I've been joking with people that I've been actually able to practice again. You know, like getting ready for gigs. You know, you teach full time.
Yeah.
You know, and have lessons and concerts you have to go to. You know, and gigs. Yeah. It's sometimes trickier to sneak in those practice times. Now I get a little more focused.
Yeah,
so
but of course you're still teaching lessons and working with young people.
A little bit. Yeah, my Iowa stuff has really, shrunk down. I only teach about 4 hours a week. Mm-hmm. And I was at Kirkwood for a couple of years, but I'm not doing that anymore. I'm slowly trying to move into the absolutely retired thing by next fall. I told myself before I turn 70, I'm not going to be doing any, public education. I might do some private lessons at home. Yeah. But so I've been very busy. Yes.
Yeah. What's before we kind of dive into talking about the gig and stuff, but now you've been teaching, playing guitar obviously, and teaching guitar for most of your life. Yeah. What's different about teaching students these days as opposed to maybe when you first started out?
Well, what is different? I don't know that if it's different, but I have become probably a better teacher over time, learning, that different students need different things. You age, their prior experiences. I've had a couple of younger students, like right now, Carter, is one of my students. Mm-hmm. Who's I think
Carter Buske, who's going to be on the same show with you at playing. Jazz Under the Stars,
and then Anna Cook and Marko Prinovic, all these younger kids that have been part of my private lesson thing versus teaching some students at the University of Iowa in the jazz studies area, like Joe Shanks and Ross Klauser and all the kids that have gone through there in recent years. Dave Thacker, those guys. So, I kind of gauge, what I teach. But I do have some things that I'm fairly consistent with about teaching guitar. I kind of toyed with the idea of I'm starting to kind of work on a book idea, and it's called Guitar Math, which explains the actual, how the guitar actually works, musically speaking, with finding shapes and voicings and all that stuff. And so that's been kind of fun and interesting. So I dabble with that project once in a while at the computer and sit there and work with that. But, I don't know. Part of it also is just, having access to the internet. I think it's much easier for students to source, if you want to listen to Wes, or if I tell a student you need to listen to certain guitar players to see how the style is. Nowadays, you go to YouTube and it's done. Back when I was a kid, it was like, buy the album.
Searching out.
You couldn't even find it on a radio station,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, back in those days.
Of course, we have that, but you still have to wait for it to come around.
You still have to wait for it to come around. So, but, kids have a lot of access to lots of things, and it's really wonderful. And, I've had some really great students, and, they all... go their own directions, which is good. You want the kids to find the things that really inspire them the most, and that's how that works.
I know that you're still, writing and playing your original music, and for much of your career, a lot, you work on your original music, the Grismore CA days.
Back in the earlier days, I did a lot,
and I find it personally fascinating to watch as a musician, goes through their career, and you kind of reach a point, no matter how much you are devoted to creating your own music, where you kind of, I always think you kind of have to test yourself against the standards against the songs that you grew up with that made you want to become a guitarist? At least, is that true? That's kind of how I view it. You reach a point in your career when it's like, well, I need to play these songs.
I don't know if it's a need, but you want to do it. In other words, like working with the Jazz Fest over the years, I got to meet Pat Martino. I've met Bill Frisell. I've had dinner with them, breakfast with them. And those people are inspirational to me and affected me. Like Bill Frisell, for a while, I was writing a lot of very influenced by his approach to his playing, which I had to quit doing because I'm almost starting to sound too much like him. No, it can be a dangerous thing where you start to transcribe and you hear licks and ideas, and as a younger player, you do that. But all the music, to your point, the Beaker Brothers and this group that's going to be playing it, Jazz Under the Stars, there's a few original tunes being played, but there is this kind of tribute to some of the artists that I really think are important, that I really love to play, and their tunes and their music, So
this band started, and we should say this is Trio Grismore, so it's you on guitar, the great Mitch Towne on organ, and Tim Crumely on drums. Same band that played at the Iowa City Jazz Festival on the final day.
Yep.
This began just as a Wes Montgomery.
Grant Green.
Grant Green, sorry. Yeah.
It was a Grant
Green. It was the Grant Green tribute,
which was really interesting because it forced me to. So I went through what I was trying to do. Was for myself. I went through the Grant Green catalog. If you look at Grant Green, his he recorded like 150. He's on 150 recordings or more. A good bunch of his own, but also he was one of the Blue Note Call guys, and he's on a lot of people's records you don't even know. I mean, it's scary how much he played, considering his fairly short lifespan. What he did, into his 40s. So I learned some things by just saying, okay, I'm going to go into this a little bit. And what I was doing when we first did this round with Grant Green stuff that's last fall was I was like, if you look at the recordings. All the recordings we did were between, I think, all the tunes we played were between 1961 and 1972 or 3. It was that period of time. But I could tell you he was playing with John Patton, or if he was playing with Larry Young, and the relationships between those organists and Grant Green and who he was recording with on those tunes. And so I tried to make the public aware of what we were doing. Wasn't just Grant Green, but it was Grant Green from 61, 63 with this organist, this band, on and on. For me, that was really, important. I already knew a lot about Grant Green, but I learned some more, more than I had before. And I think that's a fun thing to do, just from a historical standpoint, is to understand those players a little more deeply, and where they came from.
And so you did a couple of shows just based on the music of Grant Green. But then as you've kind of kept this ensemble together, you have expanded out. That was my brain fade there with Wes Montgomery. So you're Pat Martino.
No.
Now you've really expanded this, and it's a survey of not all, but a survey of many of the great guitarists and their work with organ trios.
Exactly. It's exploded out a little. I mean, Mitch and I were talking. We're doing a couple of originals, which we could do more. We could do an all just originals thing, which would be fun. But I also have to retool that because it's just organ trio, so it's another thing to think about when you're writing. But yes, and we're doing a couple of West tunes and a couple of Pat Martino standards and things like that. So that's really fun, and we did that for Jazz Fest because we wanted to do more than just keep playing the Grant Green tunes, And so we're still going to play a bunch of those. Probably 6, 7, 8 of the.
Well, you already have them worked up.
Yeah, we got them ready to go. So and that list will probably keep expanding as we keep playing and stuff as a trio. Hopefully, I'm trying to keep this trio as a ongoing thing if I can. We may slow down a little in the wintertime, but I'm going to try to keep it alive in some form or fashion if I can.
You can't talk about organ in Iowa without thinking about Sam Salamone.
Yeah.
Who, of course, you recorded, and performed with for many years.
Yeah, 20 plus years.
Yeah. Did was that were you already you're already interested, as a part of your career in organ trios, or did working with Sam really kind of make that a permanent part of your repertoire?
I didn't know that much about it when I started playing with Sam. I knew something about it. What's funny? Just a quick side note. I had a teacher back in the late 70s, I was at Wesleyan College in Mount Pleasant for Iowa Wesleyan for a year. I was thinking about an ed degree. One of the professors there said, you should, you ever...
Yeah, don't hit the...
Don't hit the mic.
It sounds like you're drumming on the mic. Anyway, so you're in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, so one of the professors at that time said, do you ever listen to these organists? And I had no idea. I was a high school student. Actually, it was my early college days, and I hadn't at that time really paid that much attention to that. But after that time, I did. But working with Sam was a big influence on me as far as that music goes. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone else about Sam and working with Mitch, and we had a rehearsal, and we were working on the tune Ritha, which is a Larry Young thing, and there's an ending on that tune. And I was telling Mitch in the rehearsal, here's what Sam used to do. And it was this chord progression. And he liked it. And we said, well, how long are you going to play? Well, Sam kind of usually opened up that ending and kind of vamped on that for a while. And so once we rehearsed it, Mitch goes, yeah, let's do that. So, I was talking about Sam just a few weeks ago in a rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's hard to avoid Sam's influence on me and what that meant, getting to play with him. So there you go. That's the story I tell.
Yeah. So you mentioned keeping this group together and continuing to do some gigs. Little bit of a challenge because Mitch lives in Omaha, so you got to get, it's got to be worth it to bring him over. What else is? You mentioned that you want to tail back a little bit on some of your lessons so that you can play more. I'm sure. What is hanging out there in the future for Steve?
Well, keeping this alive a little bit. I'm looking. The one thing with this trio with Mitch and Tim is to hopefully play at the Jewel in Omaha. There's a new club in, I guess, Minneapolis called the Berlin. Maybe go to Kansas City. I would like to keep it alive, and we don't have to play a million times a year, but it'd be nice to do a half dozen, 7-8 gigs a year somewhere and play just to keep that thing alive. That's one idea. Big Fun is. Okay, so next year, this fall, the project for Big Fun, which I have to talk to Dennis Green at KCCK about this, we're going to do, and this is what a lot of bands are doing these days, speaking about doing a Grant Green project. Big Fun is we're going to try to learn around the same number, 14 or 15 Jazz Crusaders tunes, and do a special Jazz Crusaders vibe for some shows.
Very fun.
So I've already got those tunes. I've already sent those. I've spent a lot of time getting that prepared already. So the music's there, we just have to rehearse, which is what we're going to do this fall. The other idea with the Beaker Brothers, and I've already mentioned this to you, but I don't know if I should go there, is...
Well, it's just going to be on the radio.
Well, it's the idea of, we're doing the Englert show this year, and it's going to be all Santana. But then the conversation was, what do we do if we do another show the next year? Because it's kind of like we've done Allman Brothers, Clapton, Santana. Now what do we do? And one of the ideas was we could just do like one-offs and do just some of the other material we learned. But then my wife came up with an idea and says, well, what if you did something about Beaker Street and Clyde Clifford and all that? And then we had this
the original show on KAAY.
And maybe do a Beaker Street live broadcast by KCCK Radio from the Englert Theater.
Yeah, I know a radio station. I know a radio station that might be interested in that.
Yeah. You have a show called Beaker Street with John Heim. And that could be a fun, year 2025 project. So that's kind of how my brain works. We're not there yet, but it's starting. So there you go. Those are some of the things.
Yeah. So the Iowa City Jazz Festival, you obviously co-founded the Jazz Fest, and we worked together on that for years and years and years. And now you get to come back and play on the stage. You did this year. You do most years. Most years you're involved in some fashion or another.
I get to play a side stage around. Every about fifth year they put me on the main stage. Hopefully, I'll get to do that once more before I croak. But anyway, that's got to
feel really good to just see how that has continued from such humble beginnings and become such an important part of the landscape of our music area.
It's still going. We got to keep on that. Sometimes I toy with the idea of getting back involved with that to some degree. And by that I mean maybe in fundraising or helping.
Well, I'm sure there's a seat on the committee just waiting for you. Whatever you say.
That could be a thing because it's been hard. They don't have the cash that we used to have. I mean, I know what it was. I used to raise the money. I used to have to raise close to $100,000 a year for that event. And
Right.
I don't think that's where it's at now.
Yeah. It's fundraising,
Yeah.
fundraising dollars. It's always been hard, and it's
It's a question.
it's never harder than it's been right now.
But you know what's really.
But we've been able to keep the fest going, even though we haven't quite had the resources that we had during its heyday.
No, and that's wonderful, and I appreciate and people work hard. I thought they did a great job this year. I like the bands they're bringing in for the most part. I mean, there are some small things you could always talk and tweak, but and I once again I tell my wife, I can complain about something, but you know what? Unless I get back involved, I need to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, don't say it too loud. Otherwise, that's a good way to find yourself with a job.
That's right. And so they're doing great. And if I want to get involved again and try to make changes, then that's on me. So that's how I see that.
But in the more immediate future, it's Jazz Under the Stars on August 22nd, Trio Grismore. And we did mention that our young artists ensemble for that is Ship of Fools out of the Eastern Iowa Arts Academy, which features your student, Carter Buske, who is just ripping it up, just finished his freshman year of high school. And
won a lot of awards.
Yeah,
Jen's doing a great job over there.
Yep, the Linmar Jazz Band had a great year. Carter won a couple of solo awards in contest season, and the
All-State Band,
the 4A Jazz All-State Band. So that's gotta also be fun to see your students doing such a great job.
Yeah, these kids. They're good.
Yep. We're going to wrap up Jazz Into the Stars on the 22nd with Trio Grismore. I'm looking forward to it. And it's always a pleasure, Steve. And looking forward to another great night.
Thanks for having us, and we're looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks.
Take care. Thanks.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio many weekdays at 10:30, or download the podcast, watch or listen on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or using your favorite podcast app. You can watch our videos on the KCCK YouTube and Facebook channels, too. Our producer is Lydia Kilgore. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.